Right, we are live here on the Gamers channel. Hello, friends. It's your lovely host of the Pink Pixels here now on Instagram, which is really exciting, right? Normally we're over on Twitch, but today we're trying something different, hanging out here, and I'm so glad to be kicking off today's discussion. We've got two amazing panelists who will be joining us for a fantastic discussion as we talk about pronouns, right? So today is Pronoun Day, and I love that this is an official day in many ways to help start a lot of conversations, perhaps discussions that some of us are unsure of. We don't know what it means or how others are talking about it. And for many of us, I hope that you're in a space that is safe, that you feel that you can share your pronouns and you can feel listened to and identified correctly. But for many people, unfortunately, especially in the gaming space, we might find ourselves hesitant to share our pronouns. And that's because there's a lot of lack of awareness or support or even kindness and understanding how important it is to recognize, acknowledge, and use somebody's correct pronouns. So I'm glad for our discussion today. And we're going to be going on for about an hour in length. I see so many wonderful friends already in chat. Thank you for joining us. We are going to have some good friends joining us. And this is also going to be, honestly, my first time doing an Instagram Live with friends. So we're going to be inviting in two great individuals. So I will be your kind moderator. I'll be keeping an eye on chat as we go through. If you've got any good questions or you want to share your own stories, please feel free to offer that to us. We love having the chance to learn about others' experiences, to be able to share and to connect. That's one thing at the Gamers we do exceptionally well, is that we try to be a space that supports individuals, that allows you to have your voice be heard, to be acknowledged and supported. So as we're talking about pronouns today, know that this is a discussion that we'll be having two lead panelists on, but your voice down below is also welcomed, right? Know that that is always here and a place for us to continue to connect with one another. All right, so as we kick off, it is now 7 p.m. We're going to get ready to invite our wonderful guests in, our wonderful panelists, as we talk about pronouns. And I feel like it, just to clarify, because as we talk about pronouns and the discussion today, sometimes it feels strange because the idea of talking about pronouns feels new. But of course, pronouns aren't new, right? They've been around for, well, since language has been here. But the practices of how we implement them and use them within our language or within different languages is much more of an opportunity for us to discuss, to evolve, and make sure it fits our needs. So for today, let's go ahead and bring in our guests. All right, we've got Raffy who will be joining us. We'll have one more hopping in a second. Let me see. There we go. Hello. I was like, that doesn't look like a person.
No, that was my bonnet, but another story for another time.
Yeah. Raffy, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. I'm kind of like, tired from like the work day, but super excited for the conversations today. And also this is my first IG live stream, so I'm both excited and wondering where my filter is.
Can we just apply that on top of this? Is that an option?
Oh, I think I just did.
Perfect.
Yes.
No, we'll figure it out later. I'll mess around with it later on my own, I suppose. The royal court of the beehive is here. Okay, there we have it. Hello, friends. So, you're doing wonderful. We're figuring out Instagram Live, but despite being fairly unknown in this Instagram Live space and us trying to figure out what's going on, we are here to talk about a very important topic about pronouns. I want us to hold off in diving into the discussion itself to get our second panelist in, but while we wait, I figured you can set the platform, the standard of introductions, by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Hey, hey everyone, my name is Raffy. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, right? I am the president and a co-founder of NYC Gamers. We are a 501c3 nonprofit based in New York City that utilizes gaming spaces and gaming culture as a way to have healthier conversations about issues impacting our community.
I love that. I love that. How long has NYC Gamers been in place?
So we started off as a community-led group, but we established ourselves in 2018.
Hey, I I love that. I think that's actually a really great reminder of how important like gamer activity is. Like sometimes we think like, well, I'm just, I only just play the games or I only play with my friends. But that's where it all begins. That's where we get to
Hmm.
start having conversations that matter, where we get to influence and play with other people and set standards of what we think should be happening and what we can talk about. So I love that. What are some of the games that you play?
Oh, now you're asking the existential questions. Hold on. So I am currently playing, I play a lot of Overwatch, right? Overwatch 2 with friends.
Mm-hmm.
I play a lot of Fortnite with friends, and
Ooh.
I'm dabbling into Baldur's Gate 3. I love Baldur's Gate, but I got stuck between
Yes.
Acts 2 and 3. So I'm stuck in Moonrise Tower. I don't even know if I have the threshold to get past that.
No, you're going to. I believe in you. To be honest, so I am totally about the whole RPG sort of stance, but I'm still in Act One of Baldur's Gate, so
Mm.
you are ahead of the game. Congratulations.
Thank you. I actually skipped the end of Act One and accidentally stumbled into the beginning of Act Two, so I went back retroactively in order to beat Act One.
I didn't even know you could do that.
Hmm.
You're teaching me things. Okay, I'm gonna give you one last gaming question because I'm really interested on the Baldur's Gate 3. What is your character? Like I love like barbarians, rogues. Where are you at here?
Okay, call me basic, but I've been playing D&D since I was 11, so I have a
What?
favorite. So like, I am a human fighter right now.
I love
Right.
that. I love that. Fighters are they're well rounded. I know some people give them a lot of
Hmm.
flack, but I think they're very functional. And honestly, as somebody who also prefers melee classes, it's nice just to hit things.
Right. I love being a battle master. I love being a two weapon fighter. I
Yeah,
started off as an archer and I switched to two weapon fighting. So there you go.
smart choice. Smart choice. A lot easier than trying to scroll through all the spell options.
Hmm.
I love that. Well, I've invited her through this, and hopefully she'll be able to join us when they can. So let's go ahead and start diving into the pronoun discussion here today, because I think this is a really hot topic, and I'm glad that we're talking about it. For you, can you kind of give us a starting point, a 101 of pronouns, not like the basic English, but actually, maybe somewhat, right? Because some people think like we should, I heard this today, not from my own community, but they shared that they heard this, but we should just get rid of pronouns. And I thought, how hard would it be to communicate without pronouns these days? So give us a little bit of the take of the conversation, set the scene for us about what pronouns are in our space and what they represent.
So, simply, right? Pronouns are how you address someone when they're not in the room, right? So it's a matter of validation and it's a reminder of respect, in my opinion, right? So if I have a friend named Sasha and Sasha is not here right now, and you were to ask me, how's Sasha doing? I'd say, oh, she's doing fine. Thanks for asking, right? But if Sasha's someone who is gender nonconforming, non-binary, maybe Sasha just happens to be someone whose pronouns are not she, her, hers. Maybe Sasha goes by he, him, his, or they, them, theirs. If you ask me how Sasha's doing and I say she's doing fine, what does that say about me as a person in relation to Sasha's truth and their lived experiences, right? If there's someone who has made it very clear that their pronouns are they, them, theirs, you see how I kind of like fall into the like
Yeah.
using gender neutral pronouns in these examples, right?
Yeah.
Um, if if I'm speaking about Sasha when Sasha's not in the room and you ask me how's Sasha doing, and I'm like, oh, they're doing good, right? This is a reminder that Sasha matters and their lived experience and their journey matters whether or not they're in this exact conversation, you know? And it's just about respect at the end of the day. If you asked me how Barack Obama was doing, I wouldn't say she's doing good, you know?
Sure, sure. And you're right, right? It's another part of expression of our identity. Okay, so if my name being Beck, right? Like I would expect people to call me that if somebody or my, well, I'm gonna use my mom as an example. She goes, "How's Cynthia doing?" Like, well, that's my sister. That's not me. You clearly couldn't be referring to me. Though, let's be honest, my name mostly gets replaced with the dog because the dog's the most common name now in this household. But right, that's a challenge of like it's part of feeling respected and seen just as much as your name. Pronouns are part of those identifiers. Now, pronouns, let's be real, right? They're not new at this point. Like pronouns have been around. We've used
Hmm.
them. Heck, in books, I can open it up and find plenty of examples. What do you think the hang up is for some people who feel intimidated about asking about pronouns or unsure of like what is this perceived and made conflict around pronouns today?
I mean, whew, when I think about this conversation, I think about why do folks make a bigger deal out of it than it has to be in the first place?
Mhm.
Pronouns is something that we learned starting in grade school, right?
Yeah.
We always learned about he, him, she, her, they, them, right?
Mhm.
If you grew up in a school setting that didn't teach you that they, them, theirs could be used both in the plural tense and the singular tense, then you didn't get the full story, right? And I don't know how you were prepared to, by the fourth or fifth grade, start, reading Shakespeare or something, right? Because they, them in the singular tense is something that has been a part of English, right, as a curriculum, but also as a language for a very, very long time. I think that what happens is this is a conversation about language access and language accessibility.
Mhm.
The more we as a people around the world are connected to the internet, the more we're connected to social media, the more access we have to culture and community.
Yeah.
So you have more and more youth who are connecting to the internet, more and more community members who are using social media and the internet in general, right? Even gaming as a way to be able to explore their own journeys and identities in safer spaces than their lived experiences. Maybe they don't have a safe space to explore their gender and sexuality in their own home or their own backyard, their own community. So they're doing it online, right? They're playing games like Baldur's Gate, for example, where they ask you what your pronouns are. And you get to say, you know what? I haven't felt safe exploring my pronouns in my own home because I fear the retaliation of that where I live. So maybe I will pick Chun-Li as my Street Fighter character to navigate my expression in a way that reflects that. Or I'm going to play The Sims and I'm going to create an avatar whose lived experience may be something that I wish I could journey through in reality. Or I'm going to play a game that allows me to pick pronouns other than the ones that I'm currently using because this is how I test my curiosity. This is how I put into practice my gender journey in a safer space. So when folks are making a bigger deal about pronouns and stuff, I'm like, well, maybe it's easy for you to think that it's more convenient for us to eliminate pronouns, but in retrospect, I think, or like to counteract that, I think that it's inconvenient of you to minimize how important that is to me and my lived experience.
Hmm. Hmm. I think that's so important, especially knowing it's a simple act of just recognizing someone's pronouns and making the effort to use them. It's
Yeah.
not exactly like we're asking you to build a rocket,
Mhm.
right? It
I mean, I
is.
think of, yeah, no, I mean, even when we're talking about gaming, right?
Mhm.
I think that pronouns, when you think about it through the lens of gamer language, I think that
Yes.
pronouns is like autosave. Whether you choose
Yeah.
to, or whether you choose to use autosave or not, doesn't change the fact that the mechanic is important as long as it's accessible, right? And you may be someone who's like, I just go by my name. I just go by my manual save file, right? Which is
Mhm.
fine, but my autosave matters, right? And
Yes.
each one is so every time you use my pronouns, that to me is an autosave on our friendship.
Mhm.
Because the moment that you misgender me, I'm corrupting your file. We
Yeah.
need to have another conversation about our friendship and how you
Mhm.
see me and how you perceive me. I've dated people like, I've had friends for a while that, they ask me about what does it mean to be non-binary but perceived male. right, to be assumed cisgender male. And I would tell them my story and I'd open up and I'd be vulnerable and I'd remind them my pronouns are they, them, theirs. And, it's okay for there to be some level of learning curve in them saying, oops, right? If they, he, him, me, or whatever. But it does get to a point where either I need to step in and check them, or I have friends in my support system that will read them to filth and be like, you need to stop misgendering Raffy because now I'm getting pissed. And that's aspiring allyship.
Yes, yes. There's so much in this I want to unpack because you're touching on so many topics. I want to hop back real quick to games, and even someone in chat, I don't want to overshadow that either. Blade mentioned words games are great for gender exploration because they have been. It's kind of that weird place for gaming, right? Like where you can be whoever you want to be. It's a chance for you to create, to identify, to live in the gaming world as how you might want to be able to express yourself, right?
Mhm.
D&D, our TTRPG players, right? That's also been a space to create experiences and also have the chance to build relationships with other people with an identity that we are exploring to say, is this how I really want to be? Is this how I want to express myself and be seen and be able to connect? And so when that comes to real relationships, we would like to see that happen in real time, in face to face. Though I would also make the case that gaming is real and all the experiences there are also real. I see. Oh, can we not get you into the chat, Carrie J? I thought we sent the invite, but I want to call out your comment there. You discovered you were trans by accident through gaming, right? It's a chance to say, like, this actually feels right for me. What an important experience that is. And while gaming has been able, all types of gaming has been able to, sometimes the communities or our friends, even more so, don't help follow through with that identity that we're sharing. Like, so, so you mentioned like how kind of revisiting or talking about that relationship, that corrupt. I like that language a lot. For you, what has that been like to have to go back to those corrupted files or say like, hold on here, if you respect me, if you call me friend, if you call or say you have a relationship with me, why do you not use the correct pronouns for me?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I do want to name real quick. This is my first time doing an IG live stream. So if this is some kind of like, user face mechanic where maybe I need to take a step back so that
Mhm,
Carrie J can step in,
mhm,
I'm totally okay with that, right? Also, just to answer your question, I I'm Black and Puerto Rican. I live in a community of family that is the exception to the rule because I just don't have the emotional capacity to sit there and argue with a bunch of Puerto Ricans about the bilingual translations of pronouns and like it's just too much. I'm just like, listen, don't charge me as much rent when I'm living with you. Make sure that I have a good meal and we're a good family. Like, they're very supportive of me and all my truth. But then, they're all very like, I'm not going to ask too many questions if it's none of my business. And I'm like, all right. It's
mhm.
different when you're having conversations with people that you're pursuing a friendship or dating or even colleagues, business, colleagues or anything, right?
Yes.
It's different because there's some sort of communication style that includes consent and boundaries. And when I'm speaking to a colleague, a coworker, a community member, a friend, someone who I'm potentially dating, and they continue to misgender me, that to me is a red flag because that means that something's not clicking when I'm trying to be vulnerable and share with you my truth and my lived experience.
Hmm. I'm glad you also mentioned like the bilingualist because sometimes when we're talking about pronouns here in the United States, we kind of default to English, right? And just saying like the she, her, they, them, all of those in that collection because that just feels what's easy and familiar with us. But it also kind of erases how pronouns are used in other languages, right? Or even how other cultures have recognized how other pronouns exist or that there are pronouns that are not gender specific at all, right? And it kind of showcases maybe our own language and the limitations around it. So, and can you
Mhm.
speak to that a little bit too, like how you see it being experienced with other languages or how you see it exist even in just English?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'll say. just because my first language was Spanish, right? Everything in the Spanish language is gendered, you know? Like, I'm someone who I learned Spanish first as a child, and then because of the American like education system, I was kind of forced to forget Spanish. So even though I spoke a quote unquote broken Spanish in the home because I better understood it than spoke it with my family, it wasn't until I got older that I had a space to reclaim learning, like relearning how to speak Spanish. And by the time I did, it was a wrap. I was speaking New Yorican. I had a Dominican accent. I don't even know where that came from. And like, you know, it's like all of these cultural diffusions. And like, you know, last year I was in Puerto Rico and I'm in my aunt's house and she says that she left me food. And I'm like, thank you. Is it in the microwave? Right? So I'm asking her in Spanish and I'm saying, oh, like, lo dejaste en la microonda. I'm thinking the microwave, la microonda. And she's like, it's el microonda. And I'm like, don't fucking I was so heated. I'm like, do not correct me because of Latin. Why is it that who authorized the microwave to be
Yeah.
masculine? And who authorized the computer to be feminine? And who authorized like I'm just like, no. My favorite one is the problem. If it's a problem, it's el problema.
Yeah.
To me, it rolls off the tongue when you say la problema, but
Yeah.
no, correctly, it's el problema. To me, I find ironic because if you're gonna give problem a masculine, let's unpack that. But yeah, I'm like, okay, y'all are telling on yourselves now. But
Uh-huh.
you know, I'm not the most familiar with multilingual accessibility to pronouns,
Mhm.
but something that I've learned engaging with other, you know, trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming people is sometimes the language exists in a neutral capacity already, or it's something that the community will work together on kind of like finding solidarity around and reclaim something or kind of like adapt to something to make it gender neutral. So the example I just gave about el and la, I know a lot of Spanish speaking communities that go with le for everything now, which, you know, it kind of makes sense when you think about it because Spanish is one of the Latin languages, right? And in maybe French, you'll hear le this, le that, le peur, le moulin rouge, right? And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cute. That's
Yeah.
very queer because I'm like, all right, le microondas, what's up, you know?
Honestly, it sounds like it'd make it easier for me to learn Spanish now. I'm gonna get back into it. Here we go.
You, right. I mean, if that was the cultural norm, it would answer so many of the problems with Spanish and other Latin languages that make the grammar around it so elitist, right?
Yes.
And inaccessible to people who are neurodivergent, where, again, that's a whole nother conversation, you know?
Mhm.
But this is what happens when we live in a world that favors people who are cisgender, people who live in and throughout a gender binary, right? Um, and we are basically doing everything in our power to exist in that while creating space where space wasn't offered to us.
Mhm. I love all this. I'm gonna ask you one more question, and then we're gonna tag team out. Because I think you bring up a really interesting point when you're talking about like who you are, right? And sharing your identity. Pronouns is just one sliver. It's still important, but it's a sliver of the very complex aspects of who we are and how we want to be seen. And for so many of us, like we don't want to just be seen in one way. Like we don't look at them
Mhm.
like I'm more than just a gamer or I'm more than just a woman. Like you take all of these pieces together and then you start, right? Like you still start to get to know who I am. So when it comes to this full scope of looking at your identity, how do you see pronouns fitting into this puzzle of this picture of you who we're creating?
So I think of it, I'm neurodivergent, I have ADHD, so I think of it a lot like how we communicate around RPGs, right? When I think about my multitudes, my many identities that make up who Rafi is, I
Mhm.
think about the fact that you can multi-class in Dungeons and Dragons, right? So
Yeah.
maybe I'm not just a fighter, maybe I'm a fighter rogue, maybe I'm a fighter rogue bard, and that's my business, that's my truth. You can't exclude that from my character sheet. And that's what pronouns are, right? They're a part of what makes up my character sheet. And when you exclude that from my character sheet, you're not allowing me to play my character, right? You're not allowing me to be me in all of my existence and all of my multitudes. So
Hmm.
I may not feel comfortable welcoming you at my table.
Yes. Yes. I think that's fair. And then, right, then you can't actually engage in the encounters or the adventures together in that same way. I love that. Honestly, that's speaking gamer language there. Like, here, let's look at the reality of it. You want me to be a good party member? Then see me for all that I bring to the
Hmm.
table, right?
Right.
I want to keep bugging you for more, so please don't disappear for this. We'll go ahead and have you pop out for a little bit. We'll keep this swap. We kept you on for about 20 minutes. We'll swap back and kind of have like a big powwow, get together conversation. Let me rephrase that language. I didn't mean to say powwow. We're going to have a good conversation, a team meeting together at the end of it, and we'll be good to move forward. All right.
Sounds great.
I don't know how to ask you to leave, so you can figure.
It's all good. I'm gonna step back.
Perfect, perfect. On Instagram, I have no idea how to kick people out at this point. All right, let me see if I can send this invite out again. Perfect. I love the conversations that we're having. I see so many of you in the chat offering some kind words, some experiences. Thank you for that on that end. Know that I see the hearts shared, and that's important. We're having this experience where we're exploring and we're learning other stories, just like what we do on Pink Pixels, anywhere on the gamers, to help us better support one another. It includes learning and listening from one another. And so here we are today on Pronoun Day, having this opportunity where we get to listen, we get to learn, we get to become, better friends, better gamers, better kind of citizens of this world, right? As we try to build an opportunity to see each other, to respect one another, to care for each other in this space. And that's very important. Right. And it's understanding that sometimes beforehand, depending on what we've been taught or the spaces that we've been in, maybe we haven't always been the best actors. But the answer isn't just to say, like, well, this is how I've always done it, or it's fine in these spaces where I'm at, or whatever excuses that we can come up with, right? We should challenge ourselves to keep learning and hearing and having the chance to make sure that we're improving so that way we can be better and kinder people to those around us. It's not hard, right? That's the challenge. It's not hard, but it takes that effort. And I'm so glad to see so many of you in chat here supporting us, giving us the opportunity to talk about this, share these live, lived experiences that we have to be able to connect. Carrie J, let me know if that invite still isn't showing up for you. It shows that it's sent, but if it's acting a little wonky, let me know and we'll figure something out. One way or another, we will figure this out today. But in this conversation, as we're talking about pronouns, right? If you've got questions, feel free to post them down below, right? We've got our wonderful panelists there, or I can read any of them out loud while we're talking here in this space. It's a chance for us to continue to make sure that we feel confident in engaging one another. Where will it show? On mine, I think under the live feature, you might have to go live and then choose to add into it, if I remember correctly. So when you swipe over to the side, you'll go click to add live, and then you should be able to then see a little plus sign or to join over, I think is what it is. Yes. So tap the plus sign at the bottom of the screen. You'll select the little camera button that has a plus sign in the middle of it, and then request to join. Though I've sent a request, so hopefully it's happy along those ways. Don't we love technology? It's a little bit of a pain, but at the same time, it allows us to connect with so many wonderful people. Yes, as Raffy noted, it is a pop-up for them, but you can request to join the live stream. So we'll find out in a hot second. We're figuring this out together. That's part of the experience. And I think it's also really good to note as well, with any good life lesson, you don't have to do it alone. If you can't figure something out, ask. I always remember that as well. Asking questions is always a good place to begin. Whenever we enter in a discussion or getting to know people, start with more questions. Right? Get to know the other person, get to know the topic. Make sure that we're all on the same page before we start asserting opinions or takes or solutions. Right? There's a lot of listening that needs to happen. All right, I see the request, and we're going to go live. And we'll see if it likes us. I think it does like a 3, 2, 1 countdown. There we go. Hello. We figured it out.
Hey, I was hoping I could do it on my computer.
Unfortunately, Instagram Live, despite being attached to Facebook, decided they don't want to, pull over those capabilities. But here you are. I love the look. The red eyeshadow is fantastic. Great pop with the shirt. Go ahead and start with an introduction. Tell all of our wonderful viewers a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure. I'm just making sure. Does it show all of me? Because it's like cut in half.
No, it's it condensed down.
We're trying, guys. We're trying.
Yeah, as long as suddenly when I'm talking, I'm lowering myself down here.
I wonder if I can do this.
In my old age, I've decided to really throw out my back and lean down so I don't have to adjust my tail.
Let's see. That'll work. Whatever.
It worked.
So, tech issues and all that aside, my name is Kairi. I'm a United States Air Force intelligence and special operations veteran, and I went on to, a trigger warning for those. This story is a little bit on the edge there, but 8.5 years after I got out of the service, I was losing a battle with alcohol every day for all those years. And December 21st of 2020, I decided to end my life, and I took a loaded weapon and put it in my mouth and pulled the trigger. And I'm a marksman. I can handle a weapon. I don't know why it didn't fire, but it's been the wildest journey ever since then, because through that I started streaming after that on Twitch. I was kind of like, dude, my internal dialogue. This was before the transition, so I had no clue I was trans at 29. Like, I always knew something was off, and I always assumed like that I was gay or something. I couldn't figure it out. And through that journey of streaming, 2 days after that attempt, I was like, dude, you got nothing left. You got nothing left to lose, so why not go for it? And I had always wanted to stream, so I started that, and in the span of a year, I was pretty successful at it. Not to be like, oh, so great. I just got on there and got emotionally butt naked for people to say, like, guys, I hurt, and I don't know how to fix it. And that was my whole formula, was just going out and trying to learn. So since then, I've started a nonprofit organization for veteran suicide prevention. I am also the community development director for Warrior Gamer Foundation, and we're doing some really cool stuff over there. We're going to do a shameless self-plug.
As you should. Plug away, please do.
But I wonder if this camera is bothering me so much.
I get it. But you look great, I'll tell you that. So even though your camera doesn't want to hold still, you look fantastic.
I just don't know where to put it, so we're just gonna get that angle.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yes.
So I have a bit of a probably different perspective from a lot of people in the regards of pronouns, and none of it comes from a place of malice. I have nothing but love in my heart. I want to do anything I can to prevent the most hurt and do the most good out there. That's my whole mission. And I think there is a common ground in the divide of people that are, I guess, anti-trans or anti-pronoun, anti-whatever, and the people that are on the team, so to speak. I think that divide exists by design, first of all. I think that we're trained by, the powers that be to be divided on things like that, because like my belief is if I'm defining myself over what somebody else calls me, if they call me he, him, they, it, I've got much bigger problems than just my pronouns. Like, I have no self-identity, is my belief. I also don't incorporate my gender or the whatever it is into like my identity, because I just am. I just want to be. Like,
Sure.
of course, I love it if somebody's she, her. I love that. It's very affirming. And also, thank you for including me on this, because that was so affirming in and of itself, like, to be considered for this. It was just really nice, so I really appreciate it. But I think that we can disagree and still get along. It's like, say we have two radical opposite ends of the spectrum,
Right.
and we'll take
our society certainly loves to have some polarizing takes each time.
Oh,
sure.
Of course. So we'll make a fake example. No, we'll use a real example. Use a real example on Twitch all the time. People come through and try to say whatever they have to say about it, and it wasn't so much of like being tough or strong. It's just what someone calls me doesn't define me. If they're doing it maliciously, like, yeah, let's have a word about it, because I'm not the one. But if they're doing it because they just don't believe in it, that's fine. They don't have to believe in it, because then it's an ideology if you have to make them believe the way you believe. So to me, I am she, her, and that's all that matters to me. I feel, and I know I can be educated in a lot of this, in the impact of what it really has, because not everybody thinks like me. Not everybody has the same brain as me of like, oh, whatever, screw it, dude. Like, they called me a he or a guy or whatever. I know it impacts others in different ways, and I'm not insensitive to that. I want to find a common middle ground where we can all agree on something. If that makes any sense. My tracking, I was up all night, so I'm so exhausted right now.
You breathe easy, and I understand, right, like that challenge of one recognizing when we come to the table, and because there's like different levels of this, right? There's the first thing is first for our own identity, right? And discovering who we are, how we want to express ourselves. That's hard enough as is, right? Like, even figuring like how do I want to address myself? How do I view myself? How do I view myself in a healthy way, right? And part of that is also choosing, like, what's our name? How do I express myself? How do I handle situations? What do I love? What do I not love? How do I choose my pronouns, right? Part of that is important. And then internalizing that, and then being able to take it external, and that's the next step, right? Like, external, and then beyond that is how does the world then respond to our external expression? And that's the hard part, where it can be frustrating, and in all of this contention we want to look for solutions, like how do we just stop being unkind to one another, right? Like, that's the general idea, is we want to find ways that people feel seen, respected across the board.
Be heard. Like, the bar is so low right now in this world of just, like, I went to Steak and Shake today, got a burger. I hadn't eaten in like 2 days. Best burger I've ever had. Oh my god! But
it's amazing how that works.
In the line, I got up to pay, and she was like, here's your total. And I just said something like, have you eaten today? And she was like, no. I was like, are you hungry? And I got her some food. Like, and she said that made her, like, she teared up, and it made her whole day. And it's just, to me, that's such a simple thing. And being kind, that's just tying into being kind. I will, my ADHD is through the roof the more tired I get, so I might get all over the place. You want to hear how I stumbled into being trans by accident?
Let's hear it.
So I started streaming, right?
Yes.
And after about a year, we had formed a nonprofit, And starting out streaming, of course, like most people do, I wanted to be the big time streamer guy, ooh, look at all these people watching me. And I found that to be very unfulfilling ultimately. But what was fulfilling was the community that started to develop around the sentiment of like, I'm hurting and so are you, and let's figure out how to fix it together. Because like it's really scary to take personal inventory and sit in front of that proverbial mirror and look at all of yourself. Because we all have parts of ourselves we don't like. We all have parts of ourselves we're ashamed of. And nobody's perfect. And if you're looking for perfect in me, I'm not it. It's a lot easier to do it when you have 1, 2, 3, 100 people by your side. I tried to push my chat away. I tried, like, told them worse and worse and worse things about things I've done in my life because I'm so scared to be so close to someone. And, they would say things like, at the worst of it, they'd be like, oh, it's a little fucked up, but we still love you, So that was the main thing. Like, they still love me.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's the root of all of this solution. Not to sound like an idealist or anything, but of all the bands out there that make music, the Goo Goo Dolls are the ones that figured it out. Like, to let love in,
It was not the band I was expecting, but I do agree with you.
I mean, it's just love. You just go with love, and all of this stuff will just fall into place. Like, if I love you and you love me, and I say I like she, her, and 10 times out of 10, people that I'm friends with that are like, I know you as Jay. My previous name was J Card on Twitch, so they call me Jay. That's where the middle name came from. But at first they'd be like, I've always known you as a guy, so I can't get with it, but I still love you. And I'd be like, okay, that's fine. And then when I tell them and express to them, like, look, it doesn't matter. What you call me doesn't define me. My identity is not intertwined with this. But I just really like it. I really appreciate it. And once that sentiment comes across, every single one of them have been like, I can get behind that. They go she, her. Sometimes they'll slip up and be like, hey, what's up? He, dude, or whatever. And they'll be like, oh. I'm like, don't sweat it. It doesn't bother me. It's when malice is involved, that's a totally different thing.
Right.
Altogether. I think we can alleviate some of the malice by just finding common ground. But anyways, I digress. I'm 1 year into streaming. The community is developing. And the way I've been helping people, that's the way I was finding my healing, was helping others. This one individual comes along, and they were like, I've been really closely working with this individual for a couple months now. And like her life had been making leaps and bounds and progress. And she comes to me one day and says, Jay, I can't go on like this anymore. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, everything's been going really good. What are you talking about? She says, I'm in my 50s. My family will never accept this. And I'll make up a name for all intents and purposes. But
Protect their identity.
She says, my whole life I've been Danielle, and I've felt like a Dan. And I was like, what? Like, I couldn't empathize with it because I couldn't understand it. And that was a big lesson in and of itself. Because if somebody's not trans, how could they fully understand what transgender is if they're not it? Like, I will never understand what it's like to be a black person because I'm not a black person. I would never know what it's like. I empathize and sympathize with the plight and struggle, but I can never fully understand it. So I can't ever expect someone to fully understand me in that regard. So that was a lesson there. But I came up with this idea because empathy wasn't working. I couldn't put myself in their shoes to figure out a way to help. So I come up with this idea of going live dressed as a woman, and I didn't tell anybody in the community. I was just going to show up.
Yeah.
And it was to show her that she could be he or whatever she wants to be, And if they got a problem with it, they can come through me, because the right ones will stay, the wrong ones will go. And I was terrified. Don't get me wrong. I was so scared trying to put up that stream. I wanted to message my buddy, my best bud, and be like, dude, I'm about to do something crazy. And if it backlashes, like,
you don't know how people are going to respond to it.
I had no clue. But I didn't have the fallback. I stayed true to myself because I wanted to see if I could do it too. I go live, dressed as a woman. I skipped one part. I had to call a girlfriend, and she comes over and does my makeup, brought a wig, you know, because I didn't know any of this stuff. And I was sitting here like a dude typically would, you know, oh, dude, I'm about to look like a girl, dude. It's going to be so funny. And I get into the mirror and, you know, turn around the corner and look, and I'm like, whoa. And it was like the weirdest feeling. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm so hot. Like, it was just such a foreign, strange, familiar comfort. Like, I still don't know how to put it into words. But anyways, I went on to did this stream. She now lives his life as he. You know, the family, they worked through it. But I just wanted to set the example of, like, just do it. You know, if that's how you feel, just do it. Because the right ones will stay, the wrong ones will go. And then I spent the next 3 months on stream completely emotionally vulnerable of, like, I don't know what that feeling was, but I want to explore it and see what you guys think and what it all means. And yeah, can we curse on here? I don't know what the...
We'll find a substitute.
I'll substitute it.
It's a fair question. I haven't thought about that yet, but we'll opt out in case.
Because my exact coming out words, once I fully realized it and it came full circle, I was playing a video game, streaming. I'm in that flow state of mind, talking to another individual that's trans, and I was just asking, I was inquisitive, like, and then, this is going to sound stupid, but I was like, freaking shoot, dudes, turns out I'm transgender. Like, I had no idea. And then I just dove right in with little to no knowledge of what that really meant and the uphill battle that it was going to be. I mean, there's a lot of pros to it too.
True.
Well, it's got its cons as well. But in that, like, in the first 2 months of that, I got really tied up in, like, I want people to call me she, and I was heavily involved in Twitter, and you know, Twitter's a nightmare of people trolling. And
it is an interesting place.
So it took me a couple months to realize, like, okay, they don't, like, the malicious trolling, that's unacceptable.
Right.
But the ones that were just, you know, the ones that knew me before that couldn't get with it or whatever, whoever it may be, they don't have to think like me for us to still get along. They don't have to get it. As long as we love each other, at the end of it, all of it doesn't matter. But I need to know and be educated by you and others here the true impact of what it has on my brothers and sisters and those in between of being misgendered. Because, like, I know what I get a twinge of it every now and then. It's like, but you know, I know it affects others more significantly, and I would like education in that regard of the significance and that impact.
I love that you kind of end on that note, because that's such a good reminder for all of us that our experience is one experience that kind of builds into this overall tapestry, this story that it is, and that one experience shouldn't inform all experiences. Instead, we should continue to learn and listen from as many that we can. Ask questions, to be there, a part of it, take part in conversations like this. And I think that's such a great take. I want to unravel a number of things, because you were so just incredibly kind to offer this vulnerability with us. Thank you for sharing, first of all, your story with us. I appreciate it greatly. I know our viewers are better for knowing it, right? This is a chance in which we get to understand and know you better. And you don't have to share your story with anyone. None of us are entitled to it. And so it's an incredible gift that you offer us. So thank you, first of all. And second, I see your wonderful, kind community down below in chat. I saw them talking and even supporting one another through all this too. It shows that, you know, good people attract good people, right? That's kind of like how it continues to grow. And that's a really good confirming thing that you should see in this space. But as you were talking about it, I think you made also a really good point about like how much we can empathize or understand somebody else's experience, right? Because even though they can explain it to us, or we might be able to relate somehow, like, well, it's kind of like this, it's still not the same, right? And how there are still walls behind it. And for me, as somebody who is not trans, right? For me to come in and be like, well, I can empathize. I can't. I can't. And so when I hear spaces of talking about trans lives or trans experiences, I would say, well, I can't empathize. I don't have a voice in this. And so what would be better in those spaces is to listen, to ask questions, and to uplift voices and the experiences of those who are in that space. And for you, in that position, when you first had your friend who was going through that, you're like, well, let me see how I can lift it up. How can I support you, was the question, instead of you just saying, like, this is how you need to handle it, right? Like, you didn't hop in to that space and demand it. And of course, in your own journey, you discovered yourself a little bit differently.
Yeah, I messed around and found out.
Yeah, surprise.
It was so funny too. Like, you know, the thoughts, and I don't believe that I am my thoughts. My thoughts are not who I am. But those bad thoughts come into your head sometimes. And one of the thoughts was, you know, like I said earlier, I was always worried that I was gay. The religious upbringing, the family that didn't really show unconditional love. It was always conditional.
Yeah.
Um, at the realization of transgenderism, I was like, oh, dude, please let me just be gay. Like, come on. I was so scared. I had no idea
what a barrier, though. Like, even whether you have people around you that are supportive or not, like, that's the secondary thing, right? Like, the actual support. Like, there's that initial thought, like, is we have that initial fear on our own, whether it's real or not, right? It's kind of like Schrodinger's cat. Like, they are both accepting and not accepting until we actually have that conversation or that opportunity to go out. And so we see that. The idea of, like, please don't let me be gay, right? Like that.
It's so ridiculous.
But that's because we can laugh more about that now because we're on a different side of that conversation at this point. We go, of course, like, of all things, like, oh no, the gay, right? Like, that's not a terrifying thing to us. But at that time in your life, it was a terrifying thing. And I even think of, like, the simplicity of pronouns. Somebody not wanting to go with their societally assigned pronouns and wanting to opt for one that feels more like them. There's that same kind of approach of, like, there might be problems. There's going to be somebody who's going to say something. I'm going to have to now take on this new battle that comes with it. And I appreciate, of course, your take. You're like, listen, it's not impacting me. And I think that's, yeah, you're right. Like, and I think that's great. But you also know, like, some people can't kind of have that same kind of approach to it. And that, on your take, like, when you see people, let's talk about the malicious side, because, you know, and unfortunately, like, in this space, it happens. For that, what does that mean for you as an individual? What is your experience and how that impacts you when people choose to be malicious, especially something about you, right? It doesn't impact them. Like, your pronouns don't impact them. You being trans does not impact them, and yet they decide to come into this space and be like, act like they're the victim, right? That they've been attacked, and so they're responding back.
Yeah, I'm coming to get you. Like, I'm over here trying to play video games and goof off, but okay. I get excited. I get excited when I meet the
You are full of surprises for me.
because every time there's been numerous times where people have come through. Like, this one individual on stream camped me on World of Warcraft for 4 months straight.
Yeah.
Well, if I logged on, they logged on, they found me, and they killed me because they were way higher level, and I couldn't do anything about it. But it's a multifaceted thing of, like, acceptance is a frame of mind. Okay? I can't control this situation.
Yeah.
So, but what I did do is just lean into love. And I really don't want to sound like, I don't care what I sound like. Love is the greatest thing on the planet. Like, and I don't mean like love, like, oh, I love you baby girl. I mean, like, love. Like, I'm there for you. Like, you need it, I'm there. You say the word, you say jump, I say how high. The kind of love that chat taught me exists when I told them the worst things about myself and the worst things. Like, I was not a good person. And none of the people here, maybe one or two of them, but not a lot of them, know the amount of violence it took to become this gentle. And
What a line.
you know, special operations was, I was a child, you know, and the things we did thinking we were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
There's no way that goes into acceptance again of like, there's no way to change that.
Yeah.
But what I can do going forward is try to be better than I was that day. Just every day, try to be better than who that person was. I get excited when people come through like those trolls because it's an opportunity to lean into love and show them love in a real sense. And every time it happens, like universally, they, you know, I'll say something like, I'm trying to think of an example. There's so many ones to pick from. That guy that camped me for 4 months on WoW.
Yeah.
Every time he killed me, I said, "Look, dude, you're not gonna win if you're trying to troll me. I've been a troll. I've been there. I've done that. I got the T-shirt. I know what it's about. I get it.
Right.
At the end of the day, when you lay down and go to sleep, I know you're not fulfilled because I've been there. And if you're looking for fulfillment or someone to talk to or just need a friend, you're acting out because you're in pain. I get it. But let's talk about it together. We don't have to be the same individual to find solutions to your problems. I'm here to help because that's what love does. It's just tries to lift each other up. I mean, that I have turned so many trolls into longtime friends that when it comes through, you know, I used to get real like at the beginning of the journey and when I first came out and was like really unsure of myself, that the fight or flight would trigger every time.
Right.
But I would have to, you know, like put that aside, put my veteran bullcrap aside and be like, But
Well, I appreciate you've got this overflowing approach of love, of energy, of patience. Honestly, in comparison, I feel like a very bitter old lady because I don't offer that same kind of grace. But I appreciate your approach that you bring, and of course, like how you choose to lead these conversations and really guide people into having space and inviting love into their own life, right? Because as you extend that to them, you're teaching them how to love others. That is impressive. That is not easy to do, and that comes at sacrifice of yourself. You take the time, the opportunity to invest in people who were not kind to you, and that is an extra effort. That is above and beyond. And I applaud you for doing that. I wish we had more time. We're at 7:56, so I want to give you a chance. Like, any final thoughts before I bring Raffy in to also wrap up for tonight? Any final thoughts as we kind of talk about, pronoun day, right? Today, like this day, as we talk about how do we identify, how do we care, how do we love for one another, especially using this channel of pronouns to identify, to respect, and to talk about one another.
I wish I had the heart and patience to do that. You do. I promise you, you do. It's in there. You just got to find it. Like, I didn't have it the whole time. I used to be mean as hell. I was special operations. Then I had an MMA career afterwards, and I was good at that too. Like I had to find it, and it was a journey, but it's all here. Like I looked everywhere. I looked in every drug. I looked in every program, every rehab, couple of jail stays. Like, the answer was not out there. It's right here. Taking personal inventory, figuring out who you really are, and allowing yourself to love yourself the way that you love others. Be that person that you wish you had had in your life for yourself.
That is beautiful. We love you. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your heart with us. Talk about a note of inspiration. You can cry. I'm trying not to, but you can.
It's just so powerful, man. Like, love is going to change the world. That's what I set out to do, was to change the world. And I thought I could do it alone, but I could not do it without love. It's the great, and the one thing about love that everyone needs to understand is there's two sides to it every time, universally, no matter what. Love is the best feeling on the planet and the worst pain you will ever feel alongside it. But you have to find a way to look back and be like, I'm glad I at least got to experience it for that time. Love transcends death. That it does not serve our biological imperative at all to love somebody that has died. It serves our tribe no purpose, yet we still love them. That feeling is still there. We don't choose to still love them. It's still there, whether we like it or not. We don't get to choose our feelings. What we do with them is what we get to choose. But, I mean, that's when it clicked for me of how powerful it really was, and I just dove so far into that, and I truly believe we can all do it.
I love that. I think that is a beautiful note as we wrap up for this. I want to thank you again. What a great thought. We'll pull in Raffy here in a second as we begin to also wrap up. Thank you for sharing your ideas, sharing your love, and as we talk about Pronoun Day.
Yeah, I hope I touched on the subject enough, because my brain.
It's hard, right? In an hour. So I don't know how to actually have switched someone out, so I'm going to send the invite to Raffy. Here's the fun part, right?
So we all three be together, or do I need to back out?
I think you'll have to back out. For some reason, I don't think your invite worked until he backed out.
Oh, I was doing it on computer, first of all. So that was my fault.
No, don't worry. We all wish Instagram, make the PCs work.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Right before I go?
Mm-hmm.
I'm short and sweet. If you're hurting out there with whatever you're suffering with, don't suffer in silence, dude. There's no point in doing that. There are people that care. That I promise you, there's people that would rather hear your story than hear about your funeral. And there's so many people that die unnecessarily every single day because of the pain they carry alone. And I've developed a peer-to-peer support system that is confidential. There's other resources out there. If you need help, come to me directly. I will go to whatever length I can. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a transphobic or a trans ally. We'll figure it out, because there's no reason to suffer in silence.
That's an excellent point. Thank you. I'm going to tag, she's not a mod for this channel, but my good friend, my mod, Julia. If you could grab Suicide Hotline and other good, helpful resources, Julia has some of those already linked for me. If you could post those in chat for us, Julia, I would appreciate it. But also know, you're absolutely right. Know you're not alone. Reach out, ask questions, or ask for help. Know that the support system is here. We're ready to help you in that process, or at least direct you to sources that will guide you and give you the support that you do need. Very much so. What a great thought.
Not a hand out, it's a hand up. So I'm going to back out on that one.
Thank you.
Thank you
Let's
so
get
much.
Raffy in here. No, you're amazing. Don't disappear for, well, I'll DM you separately.
Sure. I'm going to stick around for the rest of the stream. I'll be in the chat.
Okay. As we continue on, such great conversations. I know technically we're supposed to wrap up at 8, but I want to make sure that we pull Raffy in here too as we wrap up this discussion, because we mentioned, right, this is a tapestry. So we pull in everyone's experiences, and through that lens of learning and listening more and more. I feel like I'm a little repetitive on that, but it's such a key foundation, such a key step that we start with the listening and learning, that it should be the way in which it informs our behaviors of how do we interact with one another, how do we share that love, and also respecting the boundaries and identifiers that people provide to us. That's very important. All night. For key discussions, it's hard to say that's all we've got, and then we want to end the day. Oh, Raffy, I pressed the plus sign. Let's see if it's gonna like it now. But we also, oh, did it work? Here's my brain trying to do 3 things at once. Actually, 2 things, but my brain couldn't count while I was doing it. I keep pressing accept and going live, but then it doesn't do it. It's also not reacting to me inviting in. Invite. I'm pressing the invite button, Instagram. And I'm pressing accept. And I'm pressing go live. We are going to figure this out together. Because Raffy, I want to get your thoughts in. There's so much in this conversation, and it's hard because an hour never feels like enough. And it really isn't, right? We're just really unpacking these experiences that we have. If you want to continue to hear more, especially from our amazing panelists, I encourage you, make sure that you give them a follow. They're tagged in the second to last Instagram post, I believe, on the gamers. So you can see it, right? There's a little post that says that we were going to have today's chat. Everyone is tagged in there, so you can go to their accounts and you can choose that opportunity to follow them, stay attached to their stories, continue to follow their experiences and how they share it and the good efforts that they're in. Please make sure you take advantage of that. I'm pressing accept, and I don't also know why. I wish I could cancel the invitation and we can try fresh, but I don't know why it's not doing that. I don't also know why. Raffy and I were both fairly new to this and trying to figure out why Instagram will only let us do certain things at certain times. As old as it is, and Instagram is old, we would think that it would have some of its things figured out. But then again, I feel old and I don't have my things always figured out. So here we are. Maybe I should cut it some slack. We're gonna keep pressing the like button a few more times just to see how we might be able to pull in Raffy here for our conversation. I wonder on this end, I don't want to cancel it and then try to go live again, but we might do that. Yeah, we might just start fresh for a hot second. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this live, and we're going to kick it off again in a hot second here and see if we might be able to get Raffy in again. I wonder if it just puts a magical limit to say you can only join a live once, and once you leave, you're not allowed to come back, which in my brain sounds like a terrible plan on Instagram's part, but we're going to go ahead and give it a shot. So friends, please do not go anywhere. We're going to be back in 1 minute, probably even less, as I go ahead and close out this live, and we're going to kick it off just to return back with our final words with our friend Raffy. Let's do this.
We're back, as if no one expected that, right? Here we are with round 2 of our pronouns. Let's see if it will work for me today. Thank you.
Button, and it finally sent. The invitation finally sent. Okay, let's see if this works for us. It does. Hello, friend.
There you go.
We figured it out. We figured it out. You have our kind of our bookend of our conversation. You kicked us off, set the tone, gave us a good framework when it comes to approaching the conversation of pronouns, of how it exists in our complicated lives and our complicated identity. And now I'm going to have you begin to kind of help us reframe it, right? We've pulled in stories. We're starting to have a better understanding here, especially in Pronoun Day, and how pronouns exist within our greater understanding of who we are, how we exist, and how we interact with others. So first, I'm not even going to give you an agenda. I want to have it as an open opportunity of how we've been going so far, thoughts that you would like to hop in with, because I can tell something's thinking up there.
No, I appreciate it a lot. Thank you. Yeah, it's so weird that we're having tech issues, but I was listening in, and I love the conversations that we're having so far, especially from different perspectives, right? Because I think that it's important for us to really highlight our differences in order to meet at the intersections. And also just a reminder for folks to be gentle with ourselves and each other, because conversations like pronouns are a learning curve, and some folks, they learn anecdotally. Some people learn by like the application thereof. Some folks have to like read a book or watch a TikTok or participate in an amazing live stream like this, right? But what matters is that you are making an effort to acquire the knowledge to do better, right? And whether it's to acquire the tools for you personally on your journey, or it's for your continued aspiring allyship, you know. So actually, so I was actually going to name this, but
Do it.
Okay, so I'm just gonna name first and foremost, and this is a learning moment, so I know it comes from a place of love. You low-key, high-key misgendered me like
Oh,
maybe 5 minutes ago.
wait, no. But I was thinking like earlier, like I was gonna share like, hey, if I say something wrong, please correct me. And I'm glad you did, right?
No,
Because
I'm glad that it happened because I think that this is a really great example of like, this is not our
okay.
first time having conversations, and this is not something that like like I think that this is a really great example of giving ourselves permission to have
Mm,
an oops ouch moment and to make it a learning moment and to call each other and ourselves in, right? This is
mm,
something that happens often. I mean, you were just asking me about this earlier. You were like, Harafi, how do you deal with this when it comes to like your family, your loved ones, when you have these moments? And
mhm,
sometimes I need to have these conversations within my own family dynamics. And,
mm,
I'll have immediate family that they're very supportive of me and all of my truths, right? But
mhm,
I do not have the mental capacity to sit there and like explain to them these are they them pronouns. This is why I identify as non-binary. This is what that means for this. There are some family members that will make an effort to ask me questions and they'll make an
mm,
effort to want to get to know me. And then there are some family members that are happy with the me that they think that they know. And I get to choose which parts of me they get to know and which parts of me they just don't have access to because
mm,
they make that step. So when we're talking about pronouns, I want folks to remember, right,
mhm,
that you first of all, we have to give ourselves permission to fuck up sometimes. I do it all the time. I constantly misgender myself. Someone in the chat said it. They were like, us they thems tend to misgender ourselves, right? Because English as a language, it's often taught to be repetitive. It's something that we're taught as a part of behavioral conditioning. English as a language is a tool of colonization.
mm,
So when we are trying to practice having the English language be more gender accessible,
mhm,
what we're doing is that we are actually practicing the decolonization of language and language access. So it's okay to give ourselves permission to fuck up
mhm,
sometimes, but it's
mhm,
also important for us to ask ourselves, what are we doing when we
mhm,
check ourselves and then
mhm,
address it and then move forward? How do we move forward? How do we rise up?
mhm,
Right? Uh,
mhm,
Um, so yeah, like yeah, and I can go on and on about this, but I'm gonna leave this with one of my favorite quotes by Maya Angelou.
mhm.
Um, because we're talking about language access and accessibility, right?
Yeah.
There's a quote by Maya Angelou. She says, "All people in the world who are not hermits or mutes speak words. They speak different languages, but they speak words. They say, 'How are you?' or 'I'm not feeling well' all over the world." These common words, these common elements that we have between us, the writer has to take some verbs and nouns and pronouns and adjectives and adverbs and arrange them in a way that sounds fresh. The reason why is it that I love this quote from Maya Angelou is because I constantly remind myself that I am the author of my journey, of my lived experience, right?
Mm,
And I grew up in a world that prepared me or conditioned me to write my autobiography in a way that was expected of me.
mm,
But eventually, I got to a point in my life where I decided to reclaim myself in my narrative. So
mm,
when I changed my pronouns, when I said I go by they, them, theirs, that is an act of resistance and revolution. That is an act of decolonization. That is me reclaiming myself in my narrative. And when you use my pronouns, you give yourself permission to be a participant in my autobiography. And I hope that you enjoyed my read, because that's why I'm living. I'm a Leo. I love an audience.
lean into that. Okay, okay. Now I understand. No, but that was one very kind of you to offer, and I still feel embarrassed, but I appreciate the grace around that, and I also appreciate this very kind of empowering framework that you've introduced to us as being our own story writers, because it feels very simple, and we've seen templates around, right? Like it makes me even think of like the old, should I describe it as old now? Like Edward Scissorhands, right? Like everything else is cookie cutter at that point, but it doesn't feel real, and people don't get to be who they are. And it's not until like they finally get to express themselves that we see life
Mm-hmm.
for like the first time in this cultivated fake city, this fake town, right? And so when I hear you describing this, I see life in the way that you talk. I see life in the way that you are acting and living and expressing yourself. And that's important, but that's also hard to do, right? Because as if we continue this metaphor of you being the writer,
Mm-hmm.
what is that like to know that your story is breaking the standards of what people think the story should be?
Well, the way I see it is if you're going to live your life reading the same genre of books, then, maybe that works for you. Maybe you're entertained living and surrounding yourself with books by the same author with the same characters and the same plots and the same. Look, some people watch One Piece and I that's how I see it, right? I believe that we are all the masters of our own autobiographies and we all have access to the reclamation of our pens and our journeys, right? So what kind of story do you want to leave behind when you transition from this world, right? And what are you doing with the tools that either you acquired or was an unearned right if you're someone with access to power and privilege, or the tools that you reclaimed in your path to decolonization and undoing racism and transphobia and all these things? What are you doing to add something to your autobiography? I've met amazing people that if if they shared with me their metaphorical autobiography, to me, I see a graphic novel. To me, I see a chapter book. To me, I see an anthology, right? Because they bring so much of their own signature style into this. I see this diversity, this uniqueness, and I love having people like that in my life because what they're doing is that they're diversifying my library. They're diversifying my access to differences that will inspire me to amplify mine. And that's what it's all about. That's diversity, equity, and inclusion. I mean, again, take it back to gaming. If all you want to do is play Pokemon, more power to you. Play Pokemon, play all the generations of the same shit, right? But anybody who's a Pokemon gamer will tell you, even if the formula doesn't change, the updates have an impact and they make a difference. And anyone who's a game developer or a game designer will tell you that in every generation, when you see upgrades to how engage with that game, it says a lot about the growth and the evolution of not only the industry, but the animators and the designers and all of that. And that doesn't come from the same monolithic textbook of Game Design 101. It comes from the diversity of educating yourself and figuring out who are you hiring in these game studios, who are you designing with, who are you working with, who are you being inspired by. That's the beauty of diversity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good reminder, right, for us to take a small little moment to pull back and say, let me assess who's in my Instagram feed, right? Like who am I following and I'm getting content from? Is everybody the same? Is it all the same perspective, or am I looking for different pieces there? On TikTok, because we know the TikTok algorithm is very good at giving us one specific thing. Once it finds out what we like, it gives you that. So yes, it is filled with a lot of Pokemon stuff. I felt very addressed there in that moment. Right? Or if you prefer Xbox or whatever it is, right? How much, yes, I feel called out in the chat as well, when you try different opinions or games or experiences, how much more you can learn from it and how much more then you can challenge and develop your own story from that as well.
Mm-hmm.
What a great takeaway. We can't go forever, and I wish we could, but I want to give you the challenge question at the end, right? At the end of the day, when we know how important this is, and that it's a way in which we can show love, it's a way in which we can show respect, and we can show that we see others and how they want to be seen. How do all of us, right, make sure that we're putting ourselves in a position to respect and learn each other's pronouns.
I think that it starts with unlearning what we think we know, not only about ourselves, but around the world around us. And
Mhm.
then it's making more of an effort to actively aspire in allyship. You know, I hear a lot of people all the time self-identify as an ally. You know, say, oh, we're allies. This is a safe space. I have to remind folks all the time, allyship is not an identity, sweetheart. Allyship is an action verb, which means that when you are not actively aspiring in allyship, your
Mhm.
allyship pin is inactive. It is
Yeah.
moot. You know, it is literally, it is an action verb. So what are you actively doing in aspiring allyship with
Mm.
communities that maybe have more of an attachment style to pronouns and what it
Mm.
means to them? You know, and if you're someone who's going to say no thanks to the chat, okay, just know that that's going to make a difference. Can you still hear me?
It cut off for a hot second, but I can.
I had a phone call. Okay, but yeah, just to land the plane on it, it makes a difference on who is it that you are creating a safer space for in your life, because that's what it's about at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you know? I
Yeah.
say this all the time when I'm doing consultation work with game developers, you know? They're like, oh, you know, yeah, we're a group of indie game developers, and sure, we're a group of white people, but you know, we're going to have diverse characters in the game. And I'm like, okay, you think you're gonna have diverse characters in the game, but these lived experiences go above and beyond skin tone, right? Like, sure, that's great. Hair texture, skin tone, all of that very important, right? But you should know better in all of your differences in acknowledging that there's so much of a multitude that makes someone who they are, and culture has depth, right?
Mhm.
So, how are you going to add to that? How are you going to hold yourself accountable to that? And that's the challenge, honestly,
Mhm.
right? It really is like unlearning and opting into the decolonization work.
Mhm. I appreciate that you don't mince words here because really it's understanding that there is depth. And if we want to really respect and love one another, it's going to take effort. Like let's be flat out. Like if you want to, you're gonna have to start seeing people for who they are as people, not just 2D renditions of you are the labels that I assign you. Mm.
Hmm.
Mhm. Effort. I like that. I feel like today's conversation has been very good. It inspires me. I'm like there are opportunities to move forward. And I hope everyone at the end of this conversation keeps that kind of same idea. Like this is good. I hope some of us might feel called out. I know Ryan was like, oh, we do that, but the point isn't just to get stuck there at that moment, right? Don't feel frozen. The idea is how do I move forward? How do I
Hmm.
become better? That's what we can be asking. And I hope that everybody kind of has that as their mindset, especially as we go through this week. I find that once I learn a lesson, if I don't try to apply it with like in the next 48 hours, my brain will forget it, right? So I want to put this kind of call to action to everyone. We're talking about pronoun day today. Think about a way in which you can start today. Start at least by tomorrow of something that you can continue to work to get to know those around you better and who they are and how they identify and how they want to connect with you. I think that's going to give us a much better connection and relationship and gets to the root of why pronouns or why names or whatever it is out there is important to all of us. There's bigger roots involved. We're looking at the trunk of the tree and we're not looking at where the roots are growing. Maybe just a branch. I don't know. I'm not really great at metaphors. I should have left that to you. Um, dang it. You set the bar too high. But thank you. Any final words before we close out today?
I guess my final words selfishly are if you want to keep having these conversations, if you want to support and uplift me or NYC Gamers, you can follow me on social media at Raffy Regulus, or you can follow us at official NYCG for NYC Gamers, where the Y in gamers means you belong.
Oh, okay. That's cute. I like that. I like that a lot. Yes. Excellent reminder for all of our wonderful viewers. If you're catching this, make sure, and if it's easier for you, you can go to the Gamers Instagram profile. On the post, you can see our wonderful individuals who have been tagged in the post, and you can give them a follow there. Right? Simple steps, easy steps. We love those. You don't have to start searching or hope that your spelling is accurate. Easy steps to make sure that it happens. And remember, as we've talked about, where are we getting your inspirations? Two amazing individuals today that you can start following to make sure your inspiration continues to go, that this fount never runs dry. All right. Thank you all for joining us, Raffy. Thank you for joining us this evening. What a great discussion for our wonderful friends. Thank you for everyone in chat for being here, being supportive. And I want to touch on that final reminder that if you feel like you are alone in this world, if you feel like you are struggling, know that you are not alone, that there are people here ready to care for you, to support you, to love you. There are wonderful resources that are available. Please take advantage of those, right? Know that there is a way, there's always life, and there's always support. All right, let's close out for today. We're ending this live. We'll see you all around. Remember, on Mondays, we have Pink Pixels. Give the gamers a follow if you want to catch more of these conversations. Bye, friends.
Later, everyone. Thank you.